What's up, guys? Doesn't it figure that the first time I talk about audio on this channel, I have a multitude of audio problems? First of all, this recorder malfunctions. I normally record things twice. One at normal level and one 7 decibels below that level, so if this level clips, I have this one to back it up. Well, today it decided it wanted to record them at the same time, so I had some clipping issues that I was able to take care of in post, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but it's just annoying. Then, the fan for this RGB light over here decides it wants to be louder than I've ever heard it. Again, I was able to fix it in post, still annoying. And then we'll get to what Philip calls a lack of professional appearance. In fact, I have stains and rips on my shirt and hair falling out of my hat. It's a work shirt, Philip. Nobody cares because I'm doing a DIY segment at the end of this video on how to make retractable sound blankets and put them all around your room. So, Philip, do what you're best at and hit that bumper, please. Bad audio is the root of all evil when it comes to good videos versus bad videos. To me, having good audio is more important than having good video. I can watch a video if it has a little bit of noise in the footage, a little bit of grain, or God forbid isn't 4K, but I can't watch a 4K video if it's got bad audio. You can chalk up bad video to being a stylized choice. I'm trying to get that Quentin Tarantino old 70s style of look. But nobody has stylized audio. You know why? Because if you can't hear anything, it sucks. I've seen a lot of videos that have very good audio equipment and they still get bad audio and they don't understand why. Now today I'm not going to get into different kinds of audio gear as that's a video for a later date, but today I'm going to tell you how to take the gear you already have and make it sound much better. Now there's mainly just two things. The first thing being microphone placement. The closer you can get the mic to your subject, the better your audio is going to sound. That's why a lot of people choose to use clip-on lavalier mics. You can get the mic right next to your talent's mouth. Now, for me, I am using a boom microphone, and you have to play that little dance where you want it just out of frame while still being close to your subject. So while it's important to keep your boom mic out of shot, you still want it as close to your talent as you can possibly get because every inch matters. If I take just one step back, you can hear the difference in audio quality. There's more air in between me and the microphone, and you pick up all the other noises in the room. Now, while it's not that important in this room because it's acoustically treated, it's still going to make an overall worse audio track the farther it is away from your subject. Another benefit of having the mic close to you is you can bring the levels down, and that will decrease all the background noise because the higher you have to bring up the levels, the more noise that everything gets, including the unwanted background noise. There's also a debate whether it's better to boom from above or from below. I like to boom from above because I believe it gives you a much fuller, rich sound, but other people like to boom from below because it's kind of easier to get that mic close to your talent. But for me, I like to get more creative and make sure it's from above. This obviously is what it sounds like from above your talent, while this is what it sounds like below your talent. It's not that big of a difference, but it is there if you put headphones on and you really listen to it. And if you don't care if the microphone is in the shot, like in podcast situations, put that microphone right in front of your talent's face because you're going to get awesome sound that way. And that's why you see microphones in those podcast videos. So now that we've talked about mic placement, the second thing that we can control is room noise. In an ordinary room, you get a lot of reverberations off the walls, off the ceilings, even off the floors. So you have to take that into consideration when you go to your space. My studio space is multi-purpose, and I need it to be because not only do I film here, but I also build things for sets here and do whatever else I need for my film's pre-production. Versatility is very important to me. But sound treatment usually isn't very versatile because usually you treat your sound by putting up acoustic panels or styrofoam, putting big bass traps in the corners, and you put them there and they stay there. And that's good for most studio spaces, but I need my wall space for other things. So I'm going to walk you through the process of what I did to sound treat this area. The first thing I took into consideration was my floors. My floors are made out of concrete. They don't exactly absorb sound very well. They reflect it everywhere. So you're going to get a lot of reverberation. If you already have carpeted floors, you're ahead of the game. You don't have to worry about anything. What I did was place sound blankets all over the floor, folded them in half, and then layered the floor with them, interlacing the layers of the sound blankets between each other. I also made sure that heavy items were on the edges so they didn't slip and slide around, and they actually hold down pretty well. Then in this area, I placed a large rug, which kind of holds everything down and also is another layer of absorbing sound. So that takes care of the floor. Next up, we have the ceiling. The ceilings were an easy fix. I just put sound blankets up there, nailed them to the 2x4 headers, and now my ceilings are covered with sound blankets. Then we come to the walls. In an ordinary studio, you would put up big sound panels or big sound styrofoam with big bass traps in the corner. Like I said, I can't do that. So the first thing I did was worry about the back wall, the wall behind me. So behind my background here is actually another layer of sound blankets. We're catching a theme here, I think. And I just nailed them to the wall in multiple layers so it absorbed all the sound and nothing bounces off of it. Now for all the other walls, I took more sound blankets and hung them from the ceiling about 6 inches to a foot away from the walls. I attached them to the same 2x4 headers that I attached the ceiling ones to. They don't go all the way to the floor, but in most cases they really don't need to. I didn't want these blankets hanging there all the time as I wanted to be able to use the stuff that's on the walls and be able to control the reverberation at any given time. So I decided I needed a way to make sure the blankets could roll up or hang down depending on what I wanted. Now the first idea I had worked, but it was way too time consuming. Basically what I had to do is roll up the middle, get on a ladder and roll it all the way to the top, then use one of these O-clamps that have a zip tie locking mechanism and lock the middle. Then I'd have to move the ladder and do each edge. I had to do that for each blanket in this room. To pull all the blankets down would take me about a half an hour. To put them all up would take me easily over an hour. That just was too much time I was wasting. This method was good at getting them to go all the way to the ceiling, but it just took way too long. So I began to think about how I could make these blankets retractable without me having to physically leave the ground, and I came up with a system that I will show you now. These are the items you're going to need. A 1/2-inch grommet set with a bunch of 1/2-inch grommets in it and a grommet mounting kit, these screw eyelets, a 1/4-inch diameter rope, 2 dock cleats, a bunch of nails, and obviously the sound blanket. And then to put it together, all you need is a good hammer and a good Phillips screwdriver. So the first thing we're going to do is find the sides of our blankets and mark off where we want those grommets to go. And then I measured 2 feet up, which luckily for me is the length of this 4x4 I'm working on. Then I keep marking every 2 feet. So for me, I keep measuring and I come to where I have about 3 feet left. So I make a mark in the middle and then another mark at the top. I then start on the first hole. I like working on this old 4x4 so it doesn't tear up my workbench, even though my workbench is beyond torn up. I use this cutting implement and hammer it through the fabric into the block. Once it is through, I remove the cutting tool and take out whatever wood or fabric is inside of it. Now I'm making sure the front of the blanket is face down. There are 2 pieces to these grommets. This one I will be referring to as the bottom part. It's the part that actually has some depth to it. And this part will be called the top, which is this little ring of metal. I place one of the bottom grommets onto this bottom tool. Then I feed the little grommet through the hole, making sure it's sticking through it. I then take the little ring part of the grommet and place it on top of everything. Then you take this metal rod thing and put it on top of everything and hammer it down until you feel it mush down a little bit. You'll feel it, trust me. And that's all there is to the grommet process. It's very simple. I keep going down the line and doing the same process down the whole side, making sure there is a grommet installed on the top and the bottom corner of the blanket, which I didn't need to mark. Then I go to the other side of the blanket, mark off the holes, and start the whole process again. Now our sound blanket's ready for hanging. No rocket science to this part, I just hammer nails into the blanket into the 2x4 headers. Make sure the sides are where you want them. There's too many times I started hammering in and realized that I have the blanket turned the wrong way and have to take everything back down. So frustrating. I hang the left side first and then go all the way to the right side and hang the right side to make sure there's 2x4s and the spacing is correct for my blankets. Then I attach the middle to 2 different 2x4 headers in the ceiling. Now we have a hanging sound blanket. So now it's time to install the eyelets. Basically my theory here is to screw in the eyelets as close as I can to that top hole so it doesn't rip the blanket. It's pretty basic. You just turn it like you would a screw, and when you can't turn it anymore, take your screwdriver, put it through the hole, and use it to get a little more torque. Now I grab our rope and feed it through the bottom grommet from back to front first. And then I weave it back and forth from front to back for the next ones. It's kind of a sewing motion. The reason I like to do it this way is because it's easier to get the blanket down if it gets hung up anywhere. Doing it the other way tucks the bottom up underneath instead of putting it front ways where I can grab it. Once at the top, we put it through our last hole and then slide it through the eyelet. Now bring the rope down until it's long enough that you can reach it without a chair or a ladder. Now go back to the bottom of the blanket and cut the rope about a foot below the blanket. Then make a double knot or any knot that you guys can make that I can't, because all I know how to do is basic knots I learned in the 3rd grade. Any knot will work as long as it doesn't slide through that hole anymore. Now we do the same thing on the other side. And when both sides are done, we officially have a retractable sound blanket. Although it won't stay up right now because we need a way to fix it to something. I grab the cleats and screw them into a 2x4, one on each side of the blanket somewhere out of the way. Now it's time to see if our system worked. So we pull our ropes to raise the blanket and then tie off each side by wrapping the rope in a figure 8 pattern around the cleat, and then loosely hanging the excess rope on the top of the cleat. Then we do the same thing on the other side. It doesn't go all the way to the top like the other system did, but I don't need it to. I have no use for that top foot of wall space. I chose to only do 2 rows of grommets for my retractable blankets, but feel free if you want to run another run through the middle, it might bring those higher on your wall. I then did this process to every blanket in the studio, and now taking them up and down is no problem whatsoever. I still have a few things hung up with those O-clamps. Above me is a green screen with a sound blanket that can drop behind it, so if I need to do any green screen work, they're right there. I don't use them enough to have ropes in the way to hold them up. I also have some sound blankets that are hung up over there. I use them when I do ADR or when I do some voiceover work. They go all the way to the floor and make a little sound booth. And there you go. That's how I get the best possible audio out of my audio gear. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that little like button over there. If you like what I do here or just like filmmaking tutorials in general, hit the subscribe button or that bell. That's also a subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section as long as you remember. It's not a competition. Let's all rise in this industry together. See you next time.